Shocks to the system, any system, create rapid change. Trends that have been developing slowly, if at all, are accelerated at a tremendous pace of necessity. No one doubts COVID-19 is producing such change, both short and long-term change in the world, in the United States, and in this video essay specifically in business. Office buildings, especially in major markets like New York City and hundreds of others all around the globe, face a dangerous challenge, unlike any before since the dawn of the modern office building. The modern age of the elevator-driven office building began at the end of the 19th century with the opening of classic office buildings like 11 Broadway in Lower Manhattan, New York City. Office buildings have grown in number and size ever since. While there have been lulls during the last 125 years, the increasing number and use of office buildings has been on an ever upward trend through wars, depressions, and other challenges until March 2020. Then everything changed with the relentless arrival of COVID-19. Up until March 2020, the office building market was booming despite automation and the internet, expanding and healthy everywhere, most certainly including New York City. Until mid-March 2020, then something happened to the office building that has never happened before. Virtually all of them became empty for months now as lockdowns and the fear of COVID-19 spread across the world. What is most significant of all, there is no one right now who believes office buildings generally will ever return to where they were prior to March 2020. COVID-19 will largely disappear one way or another, probably in 2021. How do we know? History tells us there have been pandemics throughout all of human history. They all disappear sooner or later for one reason or others. The worst of them all, the Black Plague in the Middle Ages, is long gone history. But here is an equally important reality. Whether it was the Black Plague or COVID-19, all the major plagues bring with them major changes. This time, the fate of office buildings and business districts will be drastically altered permanently by COVID-19. Quality office buildings will never be what they had always been, easy to fill with tenants, especially during booming economies. COVID-19 has convinced business owners they can operate with far less office space and far less employees too, although that point is not being actively discussed, to no surprise. Right now, with COVID-19 somewhat under control in many places, most office buildings are 20% or far less occupied than prior to March 2020, while most businesses continue to operate internally as well or almost as well as they did before COVID-19. And most employees, although they have mixed views of work at home, do not want to return to an office anytime soon. But more importantly, if their employer makes work at home and work at remote sites permanent, employees will readily accept the change. Of course, there is a dirty, big secret to work at home and remotely, both for companies and employees. This isolation, this lack of contact, eliminates most of the pleasure many take in working and interacting with others inside an office building and in and around the community where they used to work. Some clueless building owners and managers think they can lure back their tenants and their employees by turning their buildings into high-tech fortresses, prisons with extreme measures to make those entering feel safe from COVID-19. Good luck with that. It will only have the opposite impact, driving tenants and employees away. So, is there a future for all these tens of thousands of high-rise office buildings throughout the world? Of course there is. They will not be torn down. The question is, what kind of future? Will there be a permanently depressed office market for years to come and probably forever? Or is there a bright future? For there to be a bright future for office buildings, you do not have to be a genius to figure out the path. Office buildings must be reimagined for the future. They must become very inviting places to be, like never before, in which companies and employees return because they want to, not because they have to be there. Put another way, office buildings will be filled again if decision makers at most companies find economic and financial benefit in doing so. The reason that is a challenging but realistic goal is that we as humans are social creatures who find psychological and emotional value both in gathering and also not feeling locked away in their houses or apartments most of the time. Office buildings must evolve beyond largely being isolated spaces where employees enter each morning, go to their offices, and leave at the end of the day, and the office building has no other value. That is no longer and will not be enough for now or the future. Office buildings will always have their prime core function as their reason for existing to provide office space, but they must do more. It is in doing more that they will bring tenants and their employees back and attract new tenants and their employees. I am purposely not listing my ideas for doing so. Use your imagination. How do you make an office building a stimulating experience from the moment someone enters the building until they leave? And second, what can an office building offer those who work there that is more than just their individual office spaces? From a complementary perspective, how can building owners and managers use their building, all the space in them, productively, cost effectively, beyond just providing office space to long-term tenants? Conversely, how, if at all, can they utilize an office building at night and on weekends in ways that provides additional value to the building? There is another key factor which virtually all building owners and managers have never, ever given any attention to until now, to the process of reimagining and reinventing office buildings for the future. The space beyond the office building doors, the streets and the neighborhoods surrounding the office building. From this perspective, in the eyes of most owners and managers, their buildings might as well be on Mars. As long as the area outside their building is reasonably safe and clean, this outside world does not matter. That is not a good attitude for the future of their office buildings. The neighborhood surrounding these office buildings offers incredible, useful opportunities to enhance office buildings, bring back tenants, and attract new tenants. Even more, ignoring the surrounding neighborhood makes it likely it will also become a dead zone, one more reason for others to stay away. Instead, an integral aspect of the stimulating experience that will draw tenants and employees back to office building is how vibrant is it outside the building itself. There is a symbiotic relationship between buildings and their neighborhood that has always existed and can no longer be ignored. Anyone who will leave this opportunity up to government is truly clueless and foolishly kidding themselves. Do not rely on local government for anything more than basic services. Building owners and managers need to be actively involved in the surrounding community and making it as inviting and stimulating as possible from now on in the wake of COVID-19. I have provided all the information anyone needs to get started reinventing and reimagining office buildings for the future to make them successful and profitable once again. The purpose of this video essay is not to redesign individual office building. That is the job of building owners and managers and for everyone who cares about the future of our cities and neighborhoods. Anyone who thinks the future will be like the good old days before COVID-19 is a fool, and they will lose. And that most certainly includes those who own and manage office buildings. Those who make the transition to a new age of work and office buildings will reap tremendous value and a very attractive future. Arthur Piccolo, August 16th, 2020.